Okay, I'm George Krall, scroll number AT470, graduated in 1958. I was Preakness in 1958 when Alpha Tau was the top TKE chapter in the whole national fraternity. I had a career with IBM, with my own management consulting business and a packaging business. Tau Kappa Epsilon Alpha Tau has been a huge difference in my life, primarily for two reasons. Number one, what I learned at Alpha Tau built on what I learned from my parents and my church. That is, do the right thing, have a good moral compass, respect the individual, respect the rights of others, respect property, be a gentleman all times. In other words, character counts. The other thing that I credit Alpha Tau with was I learned to be a leader at Alpha Tau, and fortunately I was a leader basically through the rest of my life. So, two things at Alpha Tau: character counts and learn to be a leader. And I'm so thankful to the men of that era that shared that with me. Okay.
I'm Maurie Kring, Alpha Tau 479, graduated from Drexel. I think it was still Institute of Technology in June of 1959, and had a career co-opt with Scott Paper Company, who doesn't exist anymore, and I was a chemical engineer, graduated in 1959. Barely made it through, failed a couple courses in my sophomore year, but got through in 5 years, which was unusual in those days. And I worked for Scott Paper Company, and then Johnson & Johnson for 20 years, and Georgia Pacific Corporation for 17 years. And somehow, I don't know, but I think TKE had something to do with it. When I was 35, I was a company president at Johnson & Johnson, and then a group of senior positions at Johnson & Johnson and Georgia Pacific traveled all over the world. TKE was a special place. You know, I transferred to Drexel actually late in my freshman year and lived at home for a while, and then I was elected Preakness and lived at the fraternity house for 6 months. So what a great time it's been, and what a great background for my career and my personal life Tau Kappa Epsilon has been. So thank you.
Okay. My name is Ray Daikeler, Alpha Tau number 366, graduated from Drexel in 1954. Was in the fraternity when we bought the fraternity house at 3421 Powelton Avenue. It was in 1952. It was one of the best days, and I'll still remember walking up the walk for the first time to that house. But most important was what went on inside the house. The men that I met, at that time we were really only boys, the values that they had, the values that we shared. After that, frankly, I lived in the fraternity house after I graduated because my parents had passed away, and then joined the Army and ended up in the party goods business for 33 years. Stayed in that until age 80, and then decided to retire. However, probably one of the most fulfilling parts of my life has been continuing to work with the young men in the fraternity. Seeing them enjoy the parties, certainly, but the interaction with their fraternity brothers, what they've learned from them, what they have shared with them, the values that they've gained, and you see them come back 3, 4, 10 years later, and all of them say the same thing. What I learned in that fraternity is what made me what I am today. And what a great thing to hear from these young men. But that's my story.
I graduated in 1962, became a teak in 1958, and the course was a very tough school, very tough agenda, and you know, I just had a very difficult time with it. The only thing that kept me going was being a teak, because I got into fraternity and then it made a whole different world. I mean, I got to know a lot of different people. I got a little bit of confidence in what I did, and it was great. I definitely would not have made it without them. I'd have quit, you know. And after 6 months, I was ready to quit, but teak made me stick around, and so I stuck around and I graduated. So 10 of my very best friends are teaks. You know, and I'm getting ready to move to Florida. There's 6 or 8 of them living there, and you know, it's lifetime friendships. You know, and you know the quality that they're going to be, and you know, it's just beautiful. You know, it made my stay at Drexel. Without teak, I probably would have quit. You know, so.
Okay, my name is Stephano. My scroll number is 931. Graduated in 1976. Left Drexel in public accounting and ended up gone with a client in 1980 and have been with the same company ever since. Currently serve as president and CEO of a number of insurance companies. We're based in Raleigh, North Carolina. Great place to live. So. Teak's been very special to me. There were a lot of lessons learned at Teak. I mean, obviously, Drexel, I think, is a wonderful university. Teak gave me the opportunity to have build very special relationships that today, here we are 35, 40 years later, and we're all together here tonight. So it's meant a lot to me personally. My wife was a sweetheart of Teak, and we've been together for 35 years. So obviously Teak is a wonderful organization. Great guys have come out of Teak, and it's been very special to me.
I'm Frank Vespaziani, also known as Vesper. I'm AT 721, and I graduated in 1969. I was the pledge captain of my class in 1965. I worked as a structural engineer for American Bridge for 5 years, and then they promoted me into sales. I worked originally in Pittsburgh, and then I went to New York City, where I worked as a salesman there. And I think partially because of my background and whatnot in the school, in the co-op program, I was the first person to be put into the sales group in New York City. Generally, New York City was the last place that people worked before they got transferred to headquarters to higher spots. So it was I think my co-op experience and everything else and the Drexel education just opened the doors for me to get into that. And the one thing I can talk about now is I'm not retired, I'm still working, but I collect a Social Security pension check from a building I designed, which is the 300 Spring Garden Street I did that back in the early 70s. Did one in Philly, one in Birmingham, Alabama, one in Chicago, and one in Richmond, California. Worked on the Superdome in New Orleans. Did the Newburgh Beacon Bridge up in between Newburgh and Beacon, New York over the Hudson River. Worked on the Commodore Barry Bridge between Chester and Bridgeport. It was a bridge that had vibration problems, and our company was called in to solve the problems, and we fixed that bridge. Traveled all over the country doing various things, and it's just been a wild ride for these 45 years, at least for me. And I really owe it all to my time at Drexel, and to tell you the truth, the time at Teak. I mean, we ran our own house. We had the Board of Control looking after us, but they gave us the responsibility to run the house, and we took care of it like you wouldn't believe, and it was just a good experience. My brother was a teak before me, not at Drexel, but at another school, so I'm kind of a legacy like quite a few other guys in the chapter. They have brothers who were teaks, and my brother just happened to be from another teak chapter, but it's just been great. There isn't any better fraternity than teak, and it's just done a lot for me.
Ron Harris, 18950, graduated June 1978. I sold explosion-proof equipment for Krall Heinz in Syracuse, New York, which was a Fortune 500 company. The key to me, really what teak meant, was I graduated high school and I was very diffident, socially not very confident, a little bit overprotected at home, and really didn't have game, frankly. And I barely pledged because I was a little intimidated by the whole experience anyway, but I did. And I moved into the house beginning of sophomore year, and I never moved out till I graduated, 4 years, including all the summers. And I slowly, kind of brick by brick, grew from an unconfident 18, 19-year-old into actually a very confident young man, because I participated in the house. I was steward, I was social chairman. I went to all the parties. I went to the parties next door to that. And I studied, but I kept growing socially through interaction and making lots of friends, becoming fairly popular, to the point my senior year, my first semester senior year, first 2 semesters, I became president of the house, became Preakness. So little Ronnie Harris, when he was 18, when he started to pledge to becoming senior, Preakness rather, 4 years later, was quite a step for me, knowing how insecure I was when I started. So what I took from teak are the social skills. Yes, being a steward, running the kitchen, the food program, and the social program, and president was very important. Obviously, it's helped me in business later, but particularly the social skills I developed then, I've carried all the way through life, and that would be the #1 thing I accomplished.
Okay, my name is Bob Thompson. Alpha Tau 774, and I graduated in 1970. Got into finance. Worked for oil companies. I originally started out with Sun Oil, where I started out as co-op and then worked for them for 34 years, and then spent my time with 2 other oil companies. Initially, when I got out of high school and went to college, I started out as an athlete. I consider myself an athlete first, and a student maybe second or third. And joining teak, the environment there and the people that we were around, there was a thing about studying was important. The people around me taught me to be better than I thought I was, and in study, in education, it helped my whole social skills. So it changed my whole view of my whole life, and it changed what I thought of myself and what I was going to be, and caused me to raise my sights on what it is. And I think it had a lot to do with how I ended up turning out in the job I did and the life I ended living.
My name is Ralph Scola. I'm Alpha Tau 641. I graduated in 1946. Well, I went to law school and I became an attorney, and that's what I do now. Tau Kappa Epsilon, Alpha Tau, Tau Kappa Epsilon, was not only a social fraternity, but also it was a fraternity where we were encouraged to do whatever we did in school very well, if not better. The year that I graduated, we won the Olympiad, we won the Kano competition, we retired the IF Athletic Club, we won 3 major athletic championships, and we also won the Scholarship Cup. And that was only because the brothers, particularly the upperclassmen, encouraged we pledges and then we younger brothers to excel at whatever it is we chose to do. And that included, by the way, making the organization a good organization. We call ourselves fraters. We don't necessarily use the term brothers, but you end up at the end of your, in my case, 5 years, including my pledge year, end up really like familiar brothers. I mean, you become so close and so friendly and with common interests and common goals that your friendships last a lifetime.